Face the Nation with CBS News Chief Washington Correspondent Bob Schieffer. And now from CBS News in Washington, Bob Schieffer.
And good morning again, and we begin this morning welcoming back to Face the Nation for the first time in exactly 1 year, Senator John McCAIN of Arizona, the person who, by the way, has been on this broadcast more than any other politician now in office. Well, Senator, you haven't been here in a year. What were you doing? Were you busy back in Arizona or what?
Busy, and thanks for having me back on. And that's probably the longest absence in all these years, too. So I'm glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're very pleased to have you. Where are you going to sit Tuesday night when the president makes his State of the Union? Are you going to join those sitting with members of the opposite party, or will you sit with the Democrats?
Yeah, I'm going to sit with Tom Udall, and hopefully, I think Mark Udall may be sitting where I usually sit. And look, this whole thing is a good idea. I think it's been a bit overblown, but the fact is it's a good thing to do. Why not? The Udalls, for example, have been close friends of me and their family for many, many years, so let's sit together. And finally, could I just mention, it might be nice, maybe we cut back a little bit on all the jumping up and down, which I think, frankly, distracts from any president's speech when it's interrupted every 30 seconds by people jumping up and down, because the president isn't speaking to Congress, he's speaking to the American people.
Well, you know, that's interesting that you should bring that up, because one House Republican, Paul Brown of Georgia, says this whole thing is a trap. He said what the President Obama is trying to do is just to keep the Republicans from leaping up and making noise.
Well, in all due respect, I kind of thought we were there to get a message from the president, and frankly, I think the cheerleading side of it detracts from the ability of any president, Republican or Democrat, to speak continuously to the American people without so many interruptions. I think there'll be plenty of interruptions, and it doesn't matter where you sit, but it might be nice to have a few less.
Do you really believe that this could be a beginning of a change in atmosphere in Washington?
I do, because I think the president has already changed a great deal. Tomorrow night he's going to be talking about cutting spending. That's what the message of the November election was. He'll be saying some things that we don't agree with, but obviously with the new appointments, with an agenda where he wants free trade agreements passed. By the way, we need to have Colombia Free Trade Agreement and Panama Free Trade Agreement right along with South Korea Free Trade Agreement if you really want to create jobs. So I think there's going to be a number of areas that we can at least find common ground on.
You know, you were very complimentary of the speech that the president made after the Tucson tragedy. You wrote in an op-ed in the Washington Post, you called it a terrific speech, and I just want to put up on the screen some of the things that you said. You said, "I disagree with many of the president's policies, but I believe he is a patriot, seriously intent on using his time in office to advance our country's cause. I reject accusations that his policies and beliefs make him unworthy to lead America or are opposed to its founding ideals." Who were you talking to when you wrote that piece, Senator?
I hope the majority of Americans. There is a lack of respect in our dialogue, and as I mentioned, I've been guilty of it from time to time myself, although from time to time, Ted Kennedy and I used to really go at it on the floor and maintain a close friendship. So we shouldn't mistake passion for advocacy. In other words, passion is necessary in this debate that we're having, but we've got to make sure it doesn't spill over into personal attacks and impugning of people's character or patriotism. And so the president gave, I think, exactly the right speech in Tucson. And by the way, it was important to the people of my state as well that he came and gave that message in Tucson. And we grieve for those who were lost, and our prayers continue to be with Gabby Giffords, who you know is making a remarkable recovery so far.
Have you talked to the president since the shooting?
Yes, I did. And I talked to him, and we had a pleasant conversation, and I did advance to him the idea that we should work together on enhanced rescissions, the line item veto power that I think is going to be necessary for this and other presidents to be able to really curb the excessive spending and earmarking that unfortunately still might go on and or may have a resurgence over time.
Did you call him or did he call you?
He called me, and we had, as I say, it was a pleasant conversation, and again, I was very grateful that he came to Tucson and at this time of profound grief in our state.
Do you feel, I mean, you made a very gracious concession statement after you lost the race for the presidency, but it's fair to say that you and the president had a fairly frosty relationship, as it were, since then. I wouldn't say you'd been, you know, cozy as it was. But is that changing? Do you feel that that is now changed?
I don't think it was so much frosty personally. I just strongly disagreed with the spending. I strongly disagreed with the stimulus package. Like in Yuma, Arizona, we've still got 23% unemployment. Nearly half the homes in Arizona are underwater. They're not worth less than the value of their mortgage. Look, people are hurting. We pass the stimulus package, unemployment will be 8% maximum. We know it's still at 9.4. So and I not only didn't like what Obamacare or health care reform was about, but I really didn't like the way they did it. The backroom dealing that they said would not happen anymore. But look, the president, I think, has learned a lot in the last 2 years, as any president does. He is a very intelligent man. I think he is doing a lot of the right things. This emphasis on cutting spending that we will be talking about tonight was something that obviously was not talked about in the last 2 years. So I think there's common ground, because I think the president realizes, as a result of the November elections, that the American people have a different set of priorities, and so we should seize that opportunity for the good of the country.
I'm going to go back to that in just a second, but first, this morning on Meet the Press, Republican leader Mitch McConnell said he is definitely going to try to force a vote on repealing health care reform, even though, as most people, and I'm sure you would agree, there is no chance that that's going to pass in the Senate. Do you think, Senator McCain, that that's a waste of time, that the time of the Senate could be better spent working on something that has a chance of passing?
One thing about the Senate, it is not the most efficient organization, and I don't think we would be wasting. We need to have a vote on it because we promised the people we would. Look at the message. We campaigned in November, in the last November elections, that we would repeal and replace. And we have to have a vote on repeal so that everybody's on record whether they want to repeal. And then I think piece by piece we go through, quote, replacing. Now I'm told already that Democrats may agree with us on some changes, but there needs to be a lot more changes than what they're willing to agree to, and it has to be the subject of a national debate.
Let's get back to spending cuts. You've never been shy about spending cuts, especially when it comes to earmarks and those pet projects that members have. But the House Republicans are talking about draconian cuts that, according to some liberal groups, would mean a 40% cut this year in such things as the National Institutes of Health, and the FBI, and federal prosecutors. Eric Cantor said this morning on Meet the Press that even cancer research is on the table. Now, you and I are cancer survivors. Do you think that's something where we can cut back?
I think there may be efficiencies there, and frankly, cancer research, I think, is one of the last things that I would go after. But we got to take on some of the sacred cows, Bob. Agriculture subsidies are outrageous today. Ethanol is a joke. And it's a multi-billion-dollar spending at all ag subsidies, sugar subsidies, all these things. They have to be examined. The post office, a model of inefficiency. Horse and buggies in the days of when internets and communications have basically replacing it more and more. We have to go after the sacred cows, and then we have to go after entitlements. And entitlements have to be on the table sooner rather than later. You and I could write the solution to Social Security problems on the back of an envelope. What we have to do is sit down together and go through those remedies. Medicare is going to be much more difficult, but we have to go after the sacred cows, and we have to go after entitlements. And the longer we wait, the worse the problem is going to be. We have saddled our kids and grandkids with a debt that is unconscionable and unsustainable and outrageous.
The Obama administration says it's going to increase the use of military commissions now to try to prosecute some of those Gitmo detainees. You were one of
Gitmo, yes.
Yeah, in Gitmo. You were one of the few who said we ought to close Gitmo. Is this a sign that you can close Gitmo right now? It's not going to be closed?
Right now. They badly mishandled this entire issue from the beginning. But Lindsey Graham and I and Joe Lieberman will be coming forward with another package to try to solve this whole issue of what we do with detainees. To try them in New York City, colleague Sheikh Mohammed in New York City, of course, was the nuttiest. And, you know, I mean, so it's good to have these trials convened in military commissions and in Guantanamo, and we'll be proposing a package that hopefully we'll work with the administration on that will give us a clear path as to how to address these people. Bob, don't forget that nearly 30% of the detainees who have been returned to the country they came from have re-entered the fight. That's unacceptable.
All right. John McCain.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Glad to have you. Hope we'll have you more frequently than over the past year.
Thank you, my friend.
Nice to see you. When we come back,